Hi guys, I'm Tori Vaughn and I am sharing my presentation on and resources on ELA for Asian American students. So one of the first things I wanted to kind of talk about was one of the articles in my Padlet of resources was Dear Educators, It is Time to Fight for Asian America. And this article just really um, was very impactful for me. It kind of emphasized the importance of fighting for and educating on Asian America and Asian American students. This quote specifically I loved. It says, "It is clear to us that in this moment, not only do many Asian Americans not know their own history, but a lot of folks in other communities do not know our history either." Um, and that just really stuck out to me overall in this whole article. Because something that I've come across frequently as I've researched for this and has been a common theme is that um, people aren't completely unaware of and uneducated on the history of Asian Americans in America, whether they aren't an Asian American or they're a Caucasian person. Nobody is educated on their history and the culture and um, events of Asian Americans in our country. And I think that is wrong. I don't think we should be ignoring the history of an entire group of people um, in our culture or in our classrooms and in our education. Um, so really a lot of what I emphasized in my resources was the importance of teaching about Asian American history and the various cultures that are a part of Asian American um, culture or that are a part of Asian America and different resources for how to teach those topics. And in my next slide, there's one topic specifically that has come up a lot lately. This video was posted, or this is a video that was made by a group called the Try Guys. They're a YouTube group that does a lot of content for that platform. But they uploaded this video specifically shortly after the shootings that took place back in March. And it's a longer video, it's over an hour, but if you have the time to watch it, it is so worth the time. And it's just a really great video. I highly recommend it. They really dive into the history of um, anti-Asian hate and Asian American culture and the impact that they've had, but also how far back the anti-Asian hate sentiments go and the problems they've caused. And it's just a really great video. Kind of gives you that overview and quick not quick, but it gives you that overview of just everything that has been going on and what you can do to help as well. And they do link all the resources they use to make their video in the description of the YouTube video as well. But I just thought this was such a valuable resource if you have the time to watch it. Personally, for me, I watched this shortly after the shootings took place, like shortly after they uploaded it. And as someone who had never really been educated on Asian American history or culture in any capacity, it was so helpful because it really just taught me so many things I didn't know because we're not teaching about Asian American history in our classrooms. So I think it's just so valuable. And with videos as well, I also linked, because this is obviously not something you would show in the elementary classroom, but I did link in my Padlet a brain pop video that's about 5 minutes long, and it was so great as well. It specifically talks about Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and why we celebrate it, why it's important, and it highlights a few Asian Americans that did big important things for the world, even not even specifically in America, but all over the globe, like things that they have done that's been so impactful. And I think that's really valuable to be exposing our kids to all just the things that the Asian Americans have accomplished, because it's something, because Asian American students specifically need to see that they can do those things too. And I think that's a problem as well, not even just for Asian American students, but for all cultures and races of students. They need to be represented and see what people like them have done, like people that look like them. They are constantly being exposed to all these Caucasians and that have done all this and done that, and all of their like all of the things they're seeing and reading are about Caucasians and white people, and they are not being represented, and that's not right. They need to be seeing themselves in the things that we're learning about and the things that we're teaching. And I kind of emphasize that more with these 3 books specifically that I also linked in my Padlet. These are 3 specific books that I linked in my Padlet that are on either Storyline online or just on YouTube and read aloud. I've personally read these 3 specifically, and I love them. I think The Empty Pot, obviously, if you've read it, it's not reflective of what Asian American students are experiencing in their day-to-day life. But it just provides that representation for students to see someone that looks like them in a book they're reading. And I think that's so, so valuable, just to see someone that looks like you. Because I know when I think about even like just the books that I read as a kid, so many of those main characters are white or Caucasian or whatever word you want to use. And that is something that we take for granted. If you are a Caucasian person, you just take that for granted, that you are constantly seeing people that look like you in the media and books and everything. And I think it's just important that we are including books in our curriculum in our classrooms, where not necessarily that emphasize the culture specifically, but just have a character that is Asian American, or that is African American, or Latinx, or anything, just so students can see themselves represented in the books you're reading in the classroom. I think that is so, so, so valuable. But I just really like The Empty Pot for that reason, just for the representation of someone, for some students to see someone that looks like them in the books they're reading. I think it's a great book also because it teaches, or it discusses themes of honesty and owning up to your failures and learning from your failures. It's just a great book all around. Lotus and Feather as well is a great book, and this one specifically gives you the opportunity to teach about Chinese culture, because as I mentioned earlier, that was reflective of the quote, we're not even educating on the history and culture of Asian Americans in our country, and that needs to be changed. Lotus and Feather is a great story, and it has themes of caregiving and animals, and it does teach about Chinese culture. And what I love about it specifically is that it is based on a true story of a Chinese village, and I think it's a great and easy way to expose your students to other cultures and teach them about, and even teaching your Asian American students specifically about where they come from, Chinese students specifically, I should clarify, of course. But it's just such a great resource for or a great book for teaching about another culture, and I think that's really important in the classroom. And then the last book I linked specifically in my Padlet was Drawn Together, and I love this book as well, for the same reason of representation and seeing someone that looks like you in the books you're reading for Asian American students. But this one I love too because it covers more like some other important themes, like bridging that generational gap and how to overcome language barriers. In this story, the grandpa does not speak English and the grandson does not, or only speaks English. So they have to learn to find a common ground between them and figure out how to interact and relate to each other. And I think that's such a valuable lesson to be teaching our students in the classroom, because they will encounter people that don't speak the same language as them or are different than them. And they need to figure out, how do I find a common ground with this person and have a relationship with them regardless of our differences. And I think that's such a valuable lesson to be teaching our students. But overall, all three of these books I think are great resources in the classroom to build lessons on, or to just have in your library for students to have access to. I also in my Padlet linked there's three links that they're all compilations and lists of various Asian American literature, the books about Asian Americans, written by Asian Americans, just ways to incorporate that into your classroom and your classroom lessons, your classroom library, um, however you see fit, of course. And I did link the presentation or the video from the last slide as well on my Padlet, the article from that I pulled the quote from at the beginning, as well as two other articles that I think are very beneficial for educating yourself on Asian American culture and history, because how can you teach about it if you don't know about it yourself, of course. So I have included several resources just for educating yourself on the topic of Asian American culture and anti-Asian hate and how to combat it, as well as resources for how to teach about it and the importance of being honest with your students and exposing them to the things that are wrong in the world and the injustices that we're facing and how to do something about it. So I hope you find my resources valuable, and thanks for listening.